Good morning, everyone, and
Good
welcome.
morning.
This is our Sunday study group, and we are going to start with our prayer. We elevate our thoughts. We ask for the blessing and protection of the spiritual benefactors, for the guidance and assistance for our studies of today. We ask them to guide us, to protect us, to bless us, so we can all together learn, understand, more important, be able to put in practice on our daily lives all the teachings we're about to receive. We ask for the protection of all those going to these difficult times, struggling with their jobs, with their health, with the loss of loved ones, that they can all be protected, that they find peace, resignation, understanding, that we can all together work to overcome these challenges, to build a better world for ourselves, for those that come after us. We thank our Master Jesus for another opportunity of being reunited in His name. With our hearts full of gratitude, we start our meeting. So be it. So today we are going to continue with our series of lectures on mediumship, and we are going to talk about the Perispirit. And the first important thing to say here is that the Perispirit represents so much that in this mediumship course, it is divided in two classes. Today, I'm going to talk about the Perispirit itself, its functions, how it works, what it is. I'm not going to talk about Perispirit and mediumship, which is going to be our next presentation of these lectures on Fundamentals of Mediumship. So I hope you can all see the PowerPoint presentation. I muted everybody, but if you have a question, you can raise your hands, or you can interrupt if you need, okay? And because this is a talk, but it is also a study. So if you have any questions during it, please let me know. So, talking about the Perispirit. First, Kardec asks the spirits on question 150, item A. How does the soul retain this consciousness since it no longer has its material body? And the spirits answer, it still has a unique fluid which draws from the atmosphere of its planet and represents the outer shell of its last incarnation, its Perispirit. So Kardec brings here the notion that we are more than just the material body or the physical body. So on question 135, he asked, is a person made up of anything other than a soul and a body? And the spirits answer, the link that unites the soul and the body. Now, so if we ask, what are we? We are a spirit that has a physical body. And then we have something that unites, connects this physical body to us, the spirit. Remember, we like to say always that we are the spirit, we have a physical body, and we have what this link, the spiritual body. So Kardec on question 135A asks the spirits, what is the nature of this link? And the Spirit's answer: it is semi-material. It is the intermediary between the soul and the body. This is required for communication between the soul and the body. The Spirit can act upon matter and vice versa through this link. So when we talk here about semi-material, we are talking about matter. And we are calling semi-material because, again, we lack better words, better definition. So for the purpose of our studies, we will always try to refer to the incarnated spirit as having a physical body, and this link between the physical body and the spiritual body that we are going to call the perispirit is also material, but we are going to refer as semi-material as to not cause any confusion between the physical body and the perispirit. So from the time of Paul of Tarsus, we already had this notion. Paul of Tarsus said, it is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. This is in Corinthians 15:44. So from the time of Jesus, and even way before, and we'll see that shortly, we have this notion of a spiritual body. Kardec calls it for the first time in question 93 of the Spirit's book, uses the word perispirit. So it's a word created by Kardec to define this spiritual body. And why he chose the word perispirit. He says, this is a comment from Kardec after the spirits gave the answer on question 93. Kardec comments, as the seed of a fruit is surrounded by the perisperm, the spirit is surrounded by an envelope that by analogy may be called the perispirit. So the fruit has a germ that we can call the spirit. It has the perisperm that we can call the perispirit. And it has an outlayer that we can call the physical body. But the knowledge about the perispirit is not new. It's been described by the peoples of antiquity. The Egyptians call it ka or bai, indicating that it is a form similar to the physical body. So from the time of the Egyptians, we already had the description of a spiritual body. Ka, they claim, reproduced exactly the traits of the physical body of the incarnates. So you see that the truth is out there from the very early beginnings of civilization. The Greeks named the perispirit as an ethereal body, and based on the poems of Orpheus, believed that in inferior spirits, this body had spots that characterized the faults committed. Hence, it was necessary for the spirit to return to earth to purify it. So the concept of reincarnation already within the Greeks, and the idea of the perispirit as an ethereal body. The Jewish Kabbalah calls the perispirit Roash. Buddhists call it Kuma Rupa. The Chinese call it Ki, and Hindus call it Mano Maya Kosha. Occultists, esoterics, and theosophists prefer to call the perispirit the astral body. Leon Denis, in his book Christianism and Spiritism, calls the perispirit a fluidic body. So he says, humans have two bodies. One, of course, matter, that they use to relate to the physical world. Another, fluidic, through which they enter in relationship with the invisible world. Elmo, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you have a slide with those denominations.
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks.
I can send you the text later. So the notion of perispirit that Kardec brought, as you can see, it was not new. But what Kardec brought that is really completely new is the breakthrough concept was that the spirit before has been not thought as a distinct from its form. So when we once said a ghost, it was considered the ghost itself, not the appearance of a ghost. So Kardec, when he brings the notion of a perispirit, it brings the notion of something that is separated from the spirit. It's not the spirit. And all these denominations that I read before from the antiquity, the definition is of one and only, the spirit and the spiritual body being one and the same. So Kardec is the first one that brings a notion of a separation between the spirit and the spiritual body, the so-called perispirit. So what are the semi-material or the properties of the perispirit? So the nature of the perispirit, it is matter. It's we don't know the exact properties of this matter, so it's unknown to us, but we will still continue to investigate and we'll learn more and more. We know that the perispirit is the conductor, is the wire of the thought. So from the spirit to the perispirit to the physical body when we have a physical body or when we don't have, it is the conductor of the thought. It never separates from the soul, meaning the spirit has always the perispirit linked to it. It can change, and we'll see how it changes and a lot of different things that happen with the perispirit, but it is always connected to the spirit. And it becomes ethereal as we evolve. So in the state of purity, it becomes so ethereal that it is said that we almost no longer have a perispirit, or André Luiz says in one of his books that we lose the perispirit as we know it, but we still have a perispirit, because without the perispirit, we cannot incarnate. So you think of Jesus being a pure spirit. For Jesus to incarnate on earth, he needed to have a perispirit to build a physical body. So in question 58, Kardec says the spirit needs matter in order to act upon matter. But the perispirit, it does not think. The spirit thinks, sorry. The perispirit does not think. The form is human. It is the agent of action of the spirit. It is flexible and expandable. When it desires, it assumes different appearances. It's malleable to metamorphosis. It is normally invisible to incarnates, not always. The mediums know that. It may change states from fluid to solid. It possesses semi-material properties, and it reacts upon the universal fluid. So in Evolution in Two Worlds, André Luiz says that regarding the constitution and function that characterize the perispirit in the spiritual world after death, the spiritual body is the material vehicle par excellence, whose electromagnetic structure is somewhat modified as far as the reproductive and nutritive processes are concerned, but compatible with the acquisitions of the mind that manages it. So when we lose the physical body and we go back to the spiritual world, the structure is somewhat modified as far as the reproductive and nutritive processes, meaning our way of feeding ourselves is different, and we we do not have a reproductive system, but it's pretty much a continuation of the physical body, or the other way around, the physical body was a continuation of the perispirit. So the perispirit, being a body, even if semi-material, is made up of cells, microscopic units that form tissues and organs, perhaps not as well delineated as they occur in the physical body. Perispiritual cells are lighter and more malleable, having an aspect that resembles a soft gelatinous substance, but still classified as material elements. We're going to look into details, in more details of it. Okay, what we're trying to do here in this study is to really learn about the perispirit and how we use the perispirit and what it is used for, because this is all very important on our evolution and on our understanding of us as eternal beings, as immortal souls. So the perispirit and the physical body originate from the universal fluid. On Genesis chapter 14, items 7 and 8, we learn that the perispirit, or fluidic body of the spirits, incarnate or discarnate, is one of the most important products of the cosmic fluid. It is the condensation of this fluid around a focal point of intelligence or soul. So how the soul, the spirit, manifests in itself, how the intelligence manifests itself, is through the perispirit and then through the physical body. So it is very important to understand the perispirit as the vehicle of us expressing ourselves as the spirit. So what are we? We are, when we are incarnates, a triad. We have a physical body, a spiritual body or perispirit, and we are the spirits. When we are discarnates, we are a duad. We are the spiritual body or perispirit, but we are the spirit. We have a spiritual body or perispirit. So the perispirit, we can say that it is the fluidic envelope of the spirit, and it is of a semi-material nature. Due to its spiritual essence, the spirit is an indefinite abstract being that cannot act upon matter. It needs an intermediary. So we don't know how to define the spirit without the physical and material attributes of it. It's an abstract being. It's a creation of the creator, separate from everything else that is the universal fluid, but that is as much as we can define. So this perispirit is the fluidic envelope designated by the name of perispirit. It makes the spirit, an abstract being, into a concrete, defined being that is perceptible through thought. It renders it capable of acting upon tangible matter. So how do we connect? How is this connection with the physical body done at the moment of birth? In Genesis chapter 11, item 18, it is said that the perispirit, which possesses certain properties of matter, unites molecule by molecule with the body that is being formed. Hence, we can say that the spirit, through its perispirit, is in some way rooted in this germ, like a plant in the earth. So, in the process of reincarnation, when the new physical body is being formed in the womb of the mother, the perispirit of the new baby unites molecule by molecule with the body that's being formed. and transfers all the genetic compositions and adapts it to the physical bodies of the father and the mother, creating this new human form that will be a copy of the perispirit that is being used to form this new physical body. So what happens with the perispirit in the process of death? The other extreme of the incarnation, the reincarnation. The reincarnation starts with the birth and finishes with the death. Also on Genesis chapter 11, item 18, at the moment of death, the perispirit gradually disengages from the physical body. It releases itself from the body, molecule by molecule, as it had been united, and the spirit regains its freedom. The best explanation of this for those that can read Portuguese is in the book I Came Back, Voltei, by the spirit Federico Figner or Brother Jacob, which he was able to follow almost awake the process of disengagement from his physical body in the moment of his discarnation. So it is not the departure of the spirit that causes the death of the body, but the death of the body that causes the departure of the spirit. It may look the same, but it is not the same. So it is not because the spirit disconnects with the physical body that the body dies, but it is because the body dies that the spirit disconnects from the physical body. Okay, it's a process, as we discussed before, that may take up to 72 hours. It can happen faster, depending on how much the spiritual body, the perispirit, is connected to the physical body, and how much the spirit is evolved to understand the process unconsciously and help in the process of this disconnection. So if the spirit is too attached to the physical body and still too connected to the physical body, this disconnection is harder, it's more difficult. But again, it never takes more than 72 hours. When you see stories of spirits, narration of spirits that are still attached to their physical body way after the death of the physical body, this is mental connections. It's not there is no links, material links between the spirit and the physical body. They are all mental connections, because all the physical material connections end at most in 72 hours. So what are the constitutive elements of the perispirit? Spirits draw their perispirits from the environment in which they are. That is to say, this envelope is formed of ambient fluids. It follows the constituent elements of the perispirit must vary according to the different worlds. So this is a concept that it's a little bit complicated to understand, because when we think of the spirit after the death of the physical body, going back to the spiritual world and preserving their spiritual body or the perispirit, you think, well, but if they move to another world, and we know that all worlds in the universe are inhabited, not all by incarnated spirits, but some by discarnate. we have to understand that the Perispirit uses the element of the worlds in which is connected. So when we go to a different world, the Perispirit is going to change again. With the process, we are not fully capable of understanding, but the Perispirit grabs elements from the worlds in which it is associated and takes properties of these different worlds. Okay. Luis had a question on where is the reference of the 72-hour maximum connection of the Perispirit to the dead physical body. I will find and I'll send to you. I don't remember offhand here. If Julio Elmo you remember, you can help me here, but I don't remember exactly where it is, but I'll find it and I'll send to you, okay? So the relation of the Perispirit with the elements of nature. So we know that the Perispirit is the link between the spirit and the physical body. So one could say that it is the essence of matter. It is the principle of organic life, but not of intellectual life, since the spirit is the source of intellectual life. The Perispirit does not think. The Perispirit does not have reason. It all comes from the spirit, okay? So the spirit is the source of intellectual life. The Perispirit just reflects it. And it is also the agent of all the sensations of the external life. These sensations are located in the organs of the physical body, which serves as their channel. So all the sensations are in the Perispirit. So when the body is destroyed, these sensations become generalized. These are all in the Spirit's book, question 257. When we talk about the sensations, it's a long question that talks about the sensations of the spirit. The sensations in the Perispirit are generalized. When we are in the spiritual world, we think that we can see with our spiritual eyes, we can taste with our mouth, spiritual mouth, but in reality, they are all generalized in the spiritual body. But because we are used to have these sensations related to our physical body and related to each of the organs that we are related to the sensations, when we go back to the spiritual world, we'll still feel the sensations associated with the organs. But in reality, they are all generalized in the Perispirit. It's not specific to the organs in the Perispirit, okay? But we'll see more of this later. So when we talk about the moral evolvement of the spirit, the nature of the Perispirit, of this fluidic envelope, is always in accord with the degree of moral advancement of the spirit. So less evolved spirits that have difficulties modifying their inferior tendencies, they consequently cannot go at will from one world to another. So when we are in primitive state or in a less evolved state, we don't know much, and we stay pretty much connected to where we incarnate. They say that the spirits of primitive people, when they discarnate, they stay around the place they had their last incarnation, and they come to a new incarnation exactly around where they were before. A little more evolved spirits, but still with difficult modifying their inferior tendencies, they can go to so-called spiritual colonies or to the spiritual world in colonies like Not Solar or even in the lower zones, but they cannot go to more advanced worlds, and they cannot detach themselves from the reality they're living in because they are too much preoccupied or concerned with their inferior thoughts and inferior tendencies. So as we evolve and we learn more how to sublimate our thoughts and our tendencies, we will be able to move around and go to more evolved planes of existence that we still cannot do at this moment. So when you read Nosso Lar and you read the André Luiz's experience, you see that his mother was already living in a more evolved plane of existence, and he is taken there during one of his sleep states, and he shares with his mother some experiences there, but it eventually goes back to Nosso Lar. He's not allowed to stay there. Allowed meaning his mental vibrations do not combine with the more evolved state of existence, so he ends up going back to Nosso Lar, where his mental vibrations allow him to exist. So according to our evolvement, and this is all reflected in our Perispirit, we are able to move further and further away from the places we last incarnated, going to more evolved worlds, more evolved planes of existence. Okay. So we can say that this Perispirit is, we can divide it. And again, this is one of the divisions, and we are going to use it just to give an idea that the Perispirit is also divided in other bodies. We are going to use this definition from Dr. Marlene Nobre in her book, A Trip to Nosso Lar, and the Light of the Eternal Meeting was not translated into English, was published in 2011. And she tells us that the Perispirit is divided between the astral body, the causal body, and the vital body. So the astral body, meaning the wrapping of the spirit, the Perispirit, almost the Perispirit per se. The causal body is the result of the actions lived, meaning everything that we live throughout all our incarnations is imprinted on the Perispirit. The Perispirit is a result of all our actions lived throughout all our incarnations. And then we have the vital body, which is called also the etheric double, or the link between the spirit and the matter, which is responsible for the circulation of the vital fluid or ectoplasm. We're going to talk about it in the next couple of slides. So the double etheric is the most outward layer of the Perispirit, and it is so physical and connected to the last incarnation, the physical body, that it is said when we discarnate, when we go back to the spiritual world, the etheric double, or the outward layer of the Perispirit, also stays with the physical body and does not accompany us back to the spiritual world. So the causal body is described by Lysias in a very interesting way. He says that we are bearers of dirty clothes to be washed in the tank of human life. These unclean clothes is the causal body, woven by our hands in previous experiences. So we keep accumulating these experiences like dirty clothes on our Perispirit, and throughout each reincarnation, we wash them in the tank of human life. So these unclean clothes is what we call the causal body, that we are going to clean as we go through our reincarnations. Okay. Now talking about the vital body or the vital fluid. So There is in organic matter a special elusive principle which has not yet been defined, the vital principle. This is from Genesis chapter 10, items 16 and 18. The vital principle's activity is maintained during life by the action played by the organs, as heat by the movement of rotation of a wheel. This action ceases with death. The vital principle is then extinguished, like a wheel when it stops turning. So the vital principle is what keeps the physical body alive. It's a principle that is transmitted from the perispirit to the physical body through the vital body, and that keeps our physical body alive. The organic bodies would thus be veritable electric batteries which function as long as the elements of these cells are in the conditions required to produce electricity. When it is life, then it is life, which stops when these conditions end. That is death. Again, Genesis chapter 10, item 19. So the vital principle is none other than the particular kind of electricity designated by the name of animal electricity, released during life by the action of the organs, and whose production is arrested at death by the cessation of such action. So the vital fluid that we incarnate, when we incarnate, our physical body is kept alive by the vital fluid. There are discussions out there if we can replenish the vital fluid or not during the physical existence, and because there are conflicting reports, we're not going to go into there. But what we know is that the vital fluid is given to the physical body by the vital body, by the double etheric, that is responsible for keeping this vital fluid running and keeping our physical body alive. So one very common question that a lot of people have is if the aura and the perispirit are the same. They are not the same thing. Not even they fulfill the same functions. The aura disappears with the death of the physical body, while the perispirit survives the physical body's disintegration and accompanies the spirit to the invisible world. The aura, the human aura, will be the outward radiation of the spiritual body, and its colors vary in intensity and shade according to the state of health and the greater or lesser spiritualization of humans. So it's very important to understand this distinction between aura and the perispirit. They are not the same. When people say that some people have the ability of seeing the auras, when they say that they are seeing the auras, they are not seeing the spirit, the perispirit. They are seeing this radiation of the perispiritual energy in different colors or shades that represents what the spirit is, the emotions, the state of health, and the greater or less spiritualization of the spirit. But it is not the perispirit, okay? Very important distinction here. The double etheric is destroyed after death. We create a new double etheric when we reincarnate. Yes, it's the outward layers of the perispirit. They are destroyed after death. They stay with the physical body, or they are dissolved. And when we come to a new incarnation, the perispirit creates a new double etheric associated with the physical body, the new physical body, and in the world that is incarnating, associated with the world that it is incarnating. So let's talk a little bit about the main properties of the perispirit. First one, pliability. It refers to the morphologic alterations that occur due to the continuous mental commands of the spirit. As a result of this property, the perispirit is capable of expanding and exteriorizing in the out-of-body phenomena and its fluidic donation. What is exactly this pliability? Remember, as we discussed several times, that when we go back to the spiritual world, the moment we wake up in the spiritual world, we have the exactly appearance that we had in the moment before we died. As we stay in the spiritual world, our perispirit goes back, in the most of the cases, to the form that we were most comfortable in our previous existence. This, in the book And Life Goes On, is very well explained by André Luiz. And he says that most of us, our physical appearance that we are more comfortable with in our previous existence is somewhere between 30 and 60 years old. Each person is different. So that's how we are going to show ourselves in the spiritual world. Now, this pliability is what allows spirits to present themselves in the form that we are able to recognize them. So let's say the spirit of Francis of Assisi, it's going to present itself in front of a medium. He has to show it in the form that the medium would recognize that it is Francis of Assisi, and not in the previous or post incarnations that he may have. Otherwise, the medium won't be able to recognize. Like Elmo gives the example of his grandmother showing up to him. She has to show herself as a person, as he can recognize her, as a person at a more old age, and not as a 20-year-old that he wouldn't able to recognize. Now, our mental command is what creates the form of the perispirit, thus this pliability. And this explains also sometimes the spirit can deform itself and assume what we call ovoids, which is the result of a mono idea that the spirit engages itself on and loses all its external appearances and become the form of an ovoid. Also cases of lycanthropy, where spirits appear in the form of animals, which is what they are seeing themselves as, monsters, or they can use this to scare people and to cause impressions on people, on spirits that are susceptible to influences. So all this is in this property called pliability, that the spirit has to change its form according to their mental thoughts. And this can be a voluntary or involuntary, as we saw through all these examples that I gave. So another property is density, is where the spirit shows the weight and luminosity. The less evolved the spirit is, the denser it is, the more connected to the physical material world that it just lived. The spirit becomes more dense. The mental vibratory frequency is it's lower, so the spirit we can call it denser. When the spirit becomes more evolved and more ethereal, the density it becomes more luminous, and it becomes more ethereal in itself and becomes less connected to the material physical body. Okay. The penetrability is the ability to cross through physical barriers if the required mental conditions exist. And this is very important. They require mental conditions. A spirit can go through walls, can go through physical barriers if it is aware that it can and its mental condition allow it to. So that's why we say that spirits, how can spirits be kept out of, let's say, inferior spirits can be kept out of a spiritist center in meetings? Because the spiritist centers have guards that have for them a physical or presence in a way. It's not really physical, but it's a material presence that prevents them from crossing barriers that are created, barriers of protection that are created. As we become more and more evolved, more and more we are able to cross these barriers that are not really preventing us from moving around. But this comes with evolvement. This comes with knowledge, understanding, and evolvement. It doesn't come immediately unless the spirit is aware of it and it goes back to the perispirit of a more evolved spirit that knows how to move around. We saw a lot of this. We see a lot of these descriptions in André Luiz's books as he comes back and forth from planet Earth to Nosso and when he stops in transitory houses of assistance, that spirits, lower inferior spirits are kept out. Spirits in treatment are kept in rooms separated from each other or separated from more harmful ambience of energies. And this is all inside this property of penetrability and the understanding of how the spirit uses it to their evolution. So visibility, and the next property. The perispirit is normally invisible to incarnate spirits. Less evolved discarnate spirits can only perceive the perispirits of those who are at the same level or at levels inferior to their own. Such visibility is a natural occurrence among superior spirits. So, the perispirit, it's not visible to incarnate spirits except when they make themselves visible through materialization, then everybody can see, or through mediums that can see spirits in the spiritual world, so they will be visible to them. But this is between the physical world and the spiritual world. But also in the spiritual world, there is a difference. Spirits can only see other spirits that are at levels, at the same level or levels inferior to their own. And we see, again, going back to André Luiz and his excursions through the inferior worlds in the lower zones, when they make themselves visible when necessary to inferior spirits, or they don't perceive spirits, more evolved spirits that are around them. The one example is André Luiz himself, that spent 8 years in the lower zones, and he asks at a certain moment where was his mother that wasn't there to help him, and she answers that she was always there, but he couldn't see her. He couldn't see her because his own state of mind wouldn't allow him to see her. When he opened himself to the assistance of the spirits, then he was able to see Clarencio and the assisting spirits that were there to help him. He had to really go deep into himself and sincerely ask for help. So more evolved spirits can make themselves visible to less evolved spirits when needed, but they won't be visible to less evolved spirits if they don't make themselves visible. And spirits will and can see all spirits that are around the same level or levels inferior to their own. That's why we have such good and accurate descriptions of the so-called hell, because we can always see what is below our level. And we have so difficult and not accurate descriptions of heaven because we haven't been there. We don't know how to describe what we haven't seen. Julio always talks about the book of Dante Alighieri, Hell, and he describes hell so well, and then when he starts to describe heaven, it becomes kind of a boring book because we don't really have the understanding of what is heaven. So we don't even have words to describe something that we don't understand. So that's visibility. The other property is sensitivity, in the property of perceiving sensations, feelings, and emotions. These perceptions are not caught by means of specific organs, but rather are sensed throughout the perispiritual body. So the spirit has the sensitivity throughout the perispirit. And we discussed this a little bit before. And we can go a little bit further here and make it a little bit more complex. But the spirits tell us that even the physical body, the sensations are all in the perispirit. They are not really in the physical body. So they start when you when you feel something in your physical body, it's transmitted to the perispirit, and the sensation is in the perispirit. That's how we can explain sometimes. For instance, there are cases of people that are blind and can see things that they shouldn't be able to see because they don't have the ability of the physical eyes, but they can see because the sensation is in the perispirit. So they are able to see with the perispirit. Also, this can explain why sometimes when we lose a limb, we still have the sensation of this limb as it exists. It's a combination of the nerves of our brain and the perispirit sensation that we still, even if the physical body is damaged, the spiritual body is never damaged. The perispirit is always complete. So if we lose an arm, the physical body lost an arm, the perispirit still has both arms and can still feel both arms, and that is what is going to transmit to the physical body and will give us the impression that we have the arm, both arms. So the sensitivity, again, is in the perispirit, and of course, there is much more to study and understand. Again, I refer to question 257 of the Spirit's book, the theoretical feelings of the Spirit, and it's a 3-4 page discussion of the sensations. It's very complex, but it is worth for those that are interested in learning and understanding more about the sensitivity to go there and check on that question. So bicorpority, or out-of-body experience, represents the property of the spirit whereby it becomes two. That is to say, the physical body is sighted in one place, generally sleeping in a bed, and the perispirit is seen at another place. So This explains some phenomena that we have heard of. For instance, one of Dr. Bezerra that performed a birth in a woman with with an out of body or bicorpority. He was sleeping in the bed, and the husband came by horse at that time to the house, and when he arrived to call for Dr. Bezerra to help his wife, he says, I've already been there, I already performed the birth, and she's okay. So how could he do that with this bicorpority or out-of-body experience? There are other experiences that we learn through history of spirits that were in two places at the same time. In two places at the same time, it's important to understand that the physical body must be in a state of trance or a state of asleep. You cannot be awakened in two places at the same time. You can use this property of bicorpority to be in two places at the same time, but the physical body has to be in a state of trance or asleep. So unicity, it means that each person carries in their own perispirit the sum of its evolutionary achievements. Therefore, no two perispirits are the same. What does it mean? We all have our digital impressions, right? Our fingers, when you have these digital impressions, are not the same, are different for each one. Each perispirit is individual. There are no two perispirits that are the same. Each perispirit is the sum of its evolutionary achievement, and each one of us has our own individuality. Even when we reach perfection or a perfected state, we are still individuals, and maybe looking from here at this level of evolvement that is not very high, we will look at perfected spirits and we think that they are the same, but they are not. Each one carries the experience of all its incarnations, and each one has different incarnations, so we are individuals. The property of unicity means each perispirit has its own evolutionary path, and there are no two perispirits that are the same. So we had a question that on the previous, the bicorpority. In this case, the perispirit leaves the body or is divided in two? No, the perispirit is never divided in two. It leaves the physical body, meaning in the same way when we are sleeping and we leave the physical body, but we are connected through the silver cord and other connections, and because if these connections are cut, the physical body dies. In the case of bicorpority, it's the same thing. The perispirit detaches itself from the physical body, goes to the other place, assumes the appearance, or in a sense materializes in the place that it is in this new place, but it's never divided in two. It's always one perispirit, okay? Changeability is the property that allows changes in the perispirit as a result of the evolutive process. Changeability occurs with regard to the substance, the form, and the perispiritual structure. So as we keep evolving, our perispirit keeps changing its form, keeps changing its substance, and keeps changing its structure. So the more evolved spirits, as we said before, the perispirit is more ethereal, the form is more sublime, and the perispiritual structure is more evolved. They can assume more or less evolved appearances if they need to present themselves, but their form and their substance will be of a more elevated nature. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the 4 parts of the functions of the perispirit. The instrumental, individualizing, organizer, and sustaining. So the instrumental function allows the interaction of the spirit with both the spiritual and physical worlds. So that's the function that allows the spirit to interact both with the spiritual and physical worlds. It's called the instrumental function. The individualizing function allows the perispirit to be the linking element between the spirit and the physical body. The individualized function is related to the history and the evolutionary achievements of the spirit, and it presents peculiar characteristics to the identification of each individual. So the individualizing function is what we accumulate throughout our existences. And when we are preparing a new physical body, is this individualized function that allows the physical body to be a reflection of all the experiences accumulated in the spiritual body or in the perispirit, and related to what is need for their existence in a new incarnation. So every necessity that we have in our physical body in the new incarnation is provided by the perispirit through this individualizing function. The organizer function is the one that we see very well described in the book Missionaries of the Light by André Luiz, when he goes to the Reincarnation Institute and learns more about the reincarnation process. The organizer function is related to the role of mode that the perispirit exerts, determining the morphological and hereditary lines of the physical body. The function that guarantees the manifestation of law of cause and effect. So the organizer function of the perispirit is what's going to mold our physical body according to our necessities. So we have all the cells, all the DNA needed to the construction of the new physical body, or of course always connected to the resources provided by the cells of the mother and of the father, but according to the necessities, according to the law of cause and effect, is how the organizer function is going to build the new physical body according to the morphological and hereditary lines needed for the new physical body. And finally, the sustaining function, which is under the impulse of the spiritual mind, which allows the perispirit to be able to gradually transfer the vital energy to the physical body, sustaining it from its formation until its complete development. It's due to this function that the physical body guarantees the vitality that will sustain it during the foreseen duration of its incarnation. So the sustaining function is what will the perispirit use to allow the physical body to continue existing, to start existing from the moment of conception, and to continue existing through the incarnation of the physical body until the end of its existence. So these are the 4 main functions of the perispirit in related to its needs and the formation of the physical body as we evolve. So we are going to end with a couple of things. First, this phrase from Claude Bernard, the French physiologist, that at the time of Kardec, talks not knowing that he was describing the Perispirit, but really describing the Perispirit when he says, in this vital sketch, not visible to us, it is traced the ideal drawing of a body. That's the definition of the Perispirit by Claude Bernard. And then I'm going to show here a definition by Emmanuel. I'm going to stop share this one, and then I'm going to share this one so we can read together. We spend more than 1 hour studying the Perispirit, and then Emmanuel comes to us and tells us, what is the subtle fabric of the spiritual garment that humans will wear without the physical body after death? So bold as the attempt to explain the issue to fellow incarnates, it will be as difficult as to clarify to the caterpillar with respect to what it will be after overcoming the inertia of the chrysalis. Glued to the ground or to the foliage, crawling heavily, the insect does not suspect that it carries the germs of its own wings. The Perispirit is also an organized body that, representing the fundamental mode of existence for man, subsists beyond the tomb according to its specific weight. Formed by chemical substances that transcend the stoichiogenetic series known until now by earth science, it is a rarefied material apparatus, changing according to the vibratory pattern of the internal field. Delicate organism with extreme plastic power, it changes under the command of the thought. It is necessary, however, to emphasize that power only exists where agility and skills prevail, that only experience can confer. In primitive, ignorant, and idle minds, such a garment is characterized by its pasty features, a true continuation of the physical body, still animalized or infirm. Mental progress is the great contributor to the renewal of the spirit's equipment in any plan of evolution. The Perispirit, as to the somatic form, obeys the laws of gravity in the plane to which it is tuned. Our impulses, emotions, passions, and virtues are expressed in it faithfully. For this reason, for centuries and centuries, we will linger in the spheres of physical struggle or in the regions bordering them, purifying our clothing and embellishing it, in order to prepare, according to Jesus' teaching, our wedding garment for the divine banquet. This is from the book Roteiro, or Script, chapter 6, by Emmanuel. So after studying all of this, Emmanuel comes to us and says, all you know is that you know nothing. This is too complex for you, and you will study and you will learn as you evolve. But according to our needs and to our necessities of understanding how the Perispirit applies to our daily lives. Okay, so that was the presentation that we had. We have time for questions, discussions, and Ruth raised her hand, so she's going to be the first to ask.
When a medium sees a spirit, is that the Perispirit then?
Yes, when a medium sees, we cannot see the spirit. We see the Perispirit. The spirit is not something, it's something that we know of, that we cannot describe in terms that can be understood, or we don't have words. So yes, when a medium sees a spirit, what the medium is really seeing is the Perispirit. If a spirit materializes in front of all of us, what we are seeing is not the spirit, is the Perispirit. But again, the spirit and the perispirit, because the spirit always has a perispirit, we can say that we are seeing a spirit, but understanding that what we are really seeing is the perispirit.
Okay, I have a second question.
Sure.
When you mention about a spirit taking a form of an animal,
Yes.
can you explain a little bit more or elaborate more about it?
Yes. So everything is in the mind. And when we are in the spiritual world, our perispirit is malleable, as we discussed here. Our thoughts is what dominates our spirit. So if I start, I'm there in the spiritual world, and I start thinking that I serve from nothing, my guilty overcomes me. I start only thinking about my guilty, and I start thinking I'm not human, I'm an animal. I'm so barbarous that I'm not a human, I'm an animal. And because we live there in the spiritual world with nothing to distract us, in the physical body, we need to eat, we need to sleep. In the spiritual world, we have nothing to distract us. These thoughts can make us assume the form of an animal, because that's how it's feeling. It's the same way that they describe the ovoids, the mono thoughts. You lose the form because you have only one thought, and then you become an ovoid. So you assume you are not really an animal. You assume the form of an animal because that's how you see yourself. Also, inferior spirits that have knowledge and want to scare or impress others can assume different forms, even forms of animals, to scare. How did we come with the description of the devil? Inferior spirits that show to us in the form of a devil that they assume to scare us. And then people that had the ability to see draw the devil or describe the devil as someone with horns, with a tail and things like that. Did this this person really saw? Yes, it did. It saw a spirit showing itself in that form. So we can assume forms if we have the knowledge. And again, knowledge and moral evolvement are two separate things. So you have inferior spirits, less evolved spirits that are very intelligent and learn how to manipulate the spiritual body and can assume forms that they can use to dominate or scare others. Okay. Paco, I think you raised your hand there. I saw it.
Thank you.
You are mute, Paco. Let me unmute you.
Okay.
Okay, now you're in.
When the baby is in the womb in formation, on gestation, and you said that the perispirit is already in the fluidic mode, and they kind of grow molecule by molecule. Is it kind of concurrently, or that means that the baby is also, the perispirit is also in gestation, or is it on a consecutive basis, or that means that the perispirit is already formed?
No, what happens, and you see that in the Missionaries of Light, as the new baby is being formed in the womb, the perispirit starts losing its previous form and starts molding into the new form. So let's say a perispirit of a 6-month baby in a womb, a baby that has been in for 6 months in a womb, the perispirit already is almost like the form of this baby that is 6 months, if the spirit is less evolved. The more evolved spirits are able to, during the gestation period, are able to still live somewhat outside the formation of the new body, already connected to it, but in some way disconnected. But for most of us, we lose conscience of ourselves, and we start integrating to the new physical body that is being formed, losing the previous format of the perispirit that we had, and integrating this new form that is being formed as the baby develops. So when the baby is born, the perispirit of a baby that is 1 day old looks like a 1 day old baby.
Okay. So it's concurrently, okay, yeah, okay.
Yes, it's concurrently, yes. Okay, anyone else?
I thought about, okay, remember, one more question, may I?
Sure, go ahead.
One more question. The barriers that you were talking about in terms of going up and going down, that means that I can always go down, but I can never go up.
You only can go up if you are taken up by a more evolved spirit to show you something that is, yes, you cannot go by yourself.
On my own, I cannot do it. Okay, I got it. So there's like a barrier. Okay.
Yeah, but it is, again, it's very important to understand that it's not an imposed barrier. It's your own mental vibration that prevents you from seeing things of going to places above you, right? Because we live where our mind takes us, where our mind vibrates. So I cannot vibrate in the same way as Mother Teresa. So I cannot go up to her because my vibrational level is way below her. So I can vibrate, and I will be in a place where spirits vibrate like me. And
Okay.
spirits that are less evolved than me, I can see them if I want to and if I pay attention. Again, that's very important, because when we talk about the spiritual world, it's very important to understand that we only pay attention to what we want to pay attention, where our mind takes us. So when we were talking about Nosular, I was studying Nosular in another group yesterday with Luis, and when André Luis first started walking the streets of Nosular, he was mentioning that some spirits nod to him and smile at him, and other spirits completely ignored him. Not ignored in the bad sense, but didn't pay attention to him. And that's exactly what happens. And again, when we talk about the example of Fifth Avenue here, you walk one block of Fifth Avenue with 1,000 people around you. After one block, if I ask you, describe those people that you just saw, and you maybe will be able to describe one or two, but you never paid attention to the other 800. They are not part of your thoughts. So it's the same thing in the spiritual world. You only pay attention to what you care about. And all the other spirits that are there, they are kind of invisible to you because you're not focusing your attention on them. Okay? Luisa, yes.
Hi, Joan, sorry. How about a baby? When you get pregnant and the baby is, is formed inside of you, the first weeks, what do we have there? Because you said something about it could be outside or it could be inside, right?
Yeah, no, that's again, that's the exception. Normally, the baby, the spirit is already connected to the new physical body, and it's already unconscious of its state as an individual spirit. It loses its conscious and connects to the new physical body that is being formed since the moment of conception. what I said is just in exceptional cases of much more evolved spirits that are reincarnating during the process of this 9 months, they can still they can still have experiences outside of this new incarnation that they're coming to, much like we have our experiences during our sleep state, that we leave our physical body and we go back to the spiritual body and have a spiritual world and have experiences. So in that sense.
Okay, thank you so much. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Louise is writing a question here. Someone else has a question before that? Or Louise, you want to ask the question?
Sure. In a previous study some time ago, I remember that more elevated spirits, at least it was said, that they could change the form of another spirit, Perispirit. Could you confirm that and maybe give me a reference on where is this described?
Well, they can influence another spirit and help them change their perispirit format, but only if the other spirit accepts the influence. And you know, it's like with a prayer, we can help others, those in need. We can soothe them. We can raise their mental vibrations, and by this process, you are going to allow this person, this spirit, to change the format of its perispirit. But it's not an external action. It's the effect of a thought, of an action that will cause the spirit to change their own perispirit through the malleability of the perispirit and the ability to see it, to change it. Okay. Orlando, you asked the question. During my teenage years, I would see spirits. As I got older, I have lost this ability. Mediumship is something that we bring with us. Some people will have it from the beginning of their lives. Some people will develop it later. Some people will lose it as they get older. So one of the most famous precursors of spiritism, Emanuel Swedenborg, that wrote Heaven and Hell before Kardec, and there is a lot of similarities of spiritism. He started his mediumship when he was 57 years old, and this was in the 18th century. So you see that it's interesting. Sometimes we have external factors that can cause us for this mediumship to start appearing, but most times, for most people, it starts from the beginning, from very early age. But as we evolve, as we grow, we can sometimes lose this ability to be a medium for different reasons, Orlando. It will be difficult to say exactly why you haven't been able to do it at an older age. Maybe because the mediumship, and again, I'm not going to talk about you, I'm going to talk in general. Maybe the mediumship disturbs the person, and you reach a point where you already went to enough struggles, and it's time for you to have one last struggle. You merited, so you lose this mediumship that is been bothering you. Not lose completely, but you lose the ability. Or there is other cases of people that misuse their mediumship, and they lose their ability because of not using it properly. Or it can be related to physical problems that we have. Our physical body, as it gets older and we start having physical issues, it can harm our ability to work as mediums. So there are several facts. each case is a specific case, and I don't know specifically which one is your case, and I don't think anyone can tell you which one is your case. Maybe you can tell by analyzing yourself. Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question, João. This is Anna.
Hi, Anna. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
João, is it possible that different spirits can can mold into the physical appearance of another spirit? Because, for example, we hear so many mediumship groups saying, I have here Dr. Bezerra. I'm seeing Dr. Bezerra. Dr. Bezerra seems to be in way too many places at the same time. Is it possible that, well-intended, not in any negative way, but it could be that a spirit, in trying to help a particular group or particular person, takes the form of another spirit for whatever reason? I don't know what it is, but is it possible that you can take the form of another person, let's say another spirit?
I'm going to answer in two parts here. Yes, but in the case that the example that you gave, Dr. Bezerra, what happens is that you think of a television, right? When the president speaks on television, everyone that is connected and watching the channel can see the president and hear the president. A more evolved spirit can make itself present in different places, bringing different messages or the same message through the same in a similar way as a television. Of course, it's not the same way. The spiritual world is much more evolved, so it would be a much more sophisticated way. Also, Dr. Bezerra would be a team. Would have a team of evolved spirits working with him that can talk in the name of Dr. Bezerra. So Dr. Bezerra will send this team that works very close with him to different places to give messages to these places in the name of Dr. Bezerra. And yes, in that case, that can even look like Dr. Bezerra, but it's more unlikely, okay? But as the Perispirit, and again, the second part, this Perispirit is changeable, and we can look in the mirror and see ourselves. We can look, if we have the understanding and the knowledge of how to do it, we can look at other spirit and assume its appearance and present ourselves with the appearance of other spirits. And that can be used by less evolved spirits to confuse us, to misguide us. So we have to be very careful and go back to the basics of Spiritism, which is the importance of the message. Who we are seeing and what's the signature of the message, it's less important. The message itself, it's what matters and what we have to analyze in terms of using it for our evolution as spirits, as eternal beings. Okay? Understood?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left, so if anyone has one last question, please have it now. Ruth asked me a private question here. Let's see if I'm going to read it. No one, Carol.
Hi,
Yes.
thank you so much. General question, you were mentioning the perispirit being divided into categories of astral body, causal body, and vital body. However, I wasn't clear on the astral body. I wrote a brief note saying the wrapping of the spirit. I don't know exactly what.
Yeah, meaning, yeah, it's difficult to the astral body will be the perispirit itself, more or less. Okay, will be when you are seeing a perispirit, we are seeing a spirit of someone. You are seeing the astral body. Okay, because when you are seeing a perispirit, you are seeing the appearance, the external appearance. You are not seeing the problems it has, the casual body, meaning the experiences that go into the history of that spirit into their evolution. And you are not seeing the energies that the spirit, the vital body, the energies that the spirit is projecting to the physical body, or to the using to animate a physical body. So what you are seeing is the astral body. Okay. Okay, Ruth, I'm going to try to answer your question before we close here. The question that she asked me is, no, I'm not. I'm going to write back to you, okay? So we are going to stop here. Before we finish, reminders, our GoFund project is almost there. We thank you everyone for helping us, for donating, for anyone that wants still to donate. We are, again, as I said, 85% of our target, and this is helping pay a couple of months of rent, which is much appreciated at these difficult times. Next Sunday will be the last Sunday before the symposium. So while I have everybody here, let me call your attention to our symposium that happens in a couple of weeks, on June 6 and June 7. On June 6, in our Eastern time, from 4 to 7 p.m., we will have a couple of lectures, and then we'll have a panel on the youth and spirituality in a technological era. So the theme of the symposium is Soul Searching in a Technological Era. And on Sunday starts at noon, so we won't have our regular meeting because we have the symposium starting at noon. And we'll have a lecture, the role of technology in the dissemination of spiritual values. And then we'll have a round table with me as the moderator, and with Jussara, Dan Assisi, and Julio Carvalho. It's Spiritism, Ask Me Anything. We are going to talk about general questions. If you have questions, please send to us. Send to the United States Spiritist Federation. So, because the symposium falls on the first weekend of June, which is the day that we would be studying in the greater world. And also because May has 5 Sundays. Next Sunday is May the 31st. We'll be studying next Sunday in the greater world. We will try to finish the chapter Sex, which is chapter 11, if I'm not mistaken. So instead of studying it on the first weekend of June, we are going to study on the last weekend of May. All this information is on our website. Also, the times of the symposium in our Eastern time is also marked there. If you have any doubts, please go to our website, or please check the email that we've been sending. I hope that you will be all joining us on the symposium, because this coming Saturday we are going to have the General Assembly of the United States Spiritist Federation. There will be no lecture this Saturday at 11 a.m. okay? But they will be back, and we are going to have lectures again Saturdays in June, okay? And that's it for us today. Thank you all for joining. We are going to ask Carol to do our final prayer.
Thank you very much, John, for a wonderful and beautiful presentation. Very, very much appreciated. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we are grateful today to be together in our connection with the development and the process of learning. We are grateful for the blessings we have received from our spiritual benefactors, from the mentors, the good spirits who are with us, guiding us and showing us the way to improve ourselves and to bring into our lives a greater understanding and a greater wisdom. We are truly blessed. We have received the blessings of love, light, and healing today. We are grateful for what we have learned today, the greater understanding of the spirit, the perispirit in the body and its connection, and also as it represents this through mediumship. We are grateful for the details that we have learned, helping us to have a deeper understanding and knowledge of these things. And as we close this meeting today, we are grateful to be together. We are grateful to share what we have, not only to deepen our appreciation and understanding, but to share it with others throughout the day, throughout the week, and throughout the month, especially during this critical time. May we receive these blessings, and we give thanks. We are grateful to what we have received today, and may we share it as we are able to through our discernment with others. We are greatly blessed. May we receive the light and love of Christ within us today, and may we continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our studies, with our mindfulness, and with our deepening of understanding. As we close now, we are grateful for what we have learned, and we are grateful for the presence of all of us. May we ask for healing, for health, for protection and safety throughout the week. And we give thanks to all of our first responders, especially doing great work at this time. We close now, and we ask to be beacons of light. Go forth now in peace, so be it.